A question I'm asked time and again is, do you need to be part of a clan to enjoy Foxhole? From my experience, the short answer is no, but that still doesn't mean the game is right for you. In this video, I'm going to break down what you can do in Foxhole, either on your own or with a few friends, so you can decide for yourself whether to take a chance on the game, particularly if you don't want to be part of a clan. If you find the video useful, please leave us a comment with your thoughts and a like if you'd care to support the channel. Let's start off our list of fun Foxhole activities with those that you can do with a couple of friends before moving on to those you can do as a lone wolf. Number 1. Being a Mortar Team is some of the most fun you can have in Foxhole, but not only that, it has the potential to be a very effective influence on the battlefield. In theory, you could do this all on your own, but it's better to have a minimum of 2 players in your team. One of you aiming and shooting, while the other uses binoculars to check whether your shots are landing and adjusting for wind direction. One mortar can be effective, but each mortar you add to your team makes your unit exponentially more deadly. A few nights ago, a buddy and I grabbed a mortar tube each, a bunch of shells, and were going to spot for each other. But in the end, some random guy offered to spot for us, and 2 other guys joined with their own mortars, so we ended up being a team of 4 mortars with some random guy telling us where to aim, while debating the relative merits of different types of cheese. This is a perfect example of how small things can snowball into a genuinely effective and fun activity in Foxhole, and you'll notice this same trend across basically everything. Next up, vehicles. Tanks are great for a small team as they often require 3 or 4 individuals to fully operate. Even if there are only 2 of you, you can always ask someone else to join you. 9 times out of 10, someone will say, sure, why not? Tanks are very effective in Foxhole, particularly when cooperating with other tanks, and a great way for a small team to make a difference. When you go behind the enemy lines to disrupt the enemy in whichever way you see fit, it's called a Partisan Operation, which is a somewhat more advanced activity that newer players may need time to fully understand and pull off. However, as stealth is so important, it naturally lends itself to smaller groups. Clans obviously do partake in partisan activity, but you don't need to be in one to be effective. Often all you need is to sneak through enemy lines undetected with a trusty wrench to be able to cause havoc. It's an incredibly important part of the game, and a small group of friends are ideally placed to pull it off. I think it's fair to say that logistics is an area heavily dominated by clans, but that doesn't stop small teams doing their part to help. You can usually grab a truck and a hammer, then go to a salvage field to gather the most basic of resources, then head to a refinery to make basic materials. Delivering those to the front line in your truck is an essential task on its own, but you can easily convert some of those basic materials to weapons, ammo, bandages, fuel, explosives, everything that's required to keep a front line active. You can even see on the map exactly what each front line base already has, so you and your band of brothers can easily make a difference by running logistics. The final activity I'm going to suggest for a small team is to build Sandbag Walls. In Foxhole, you will see a large number of huge and complex defensive structures that are generally the domain of experienced players, but don't underestimate how effective a well-placed sandbag wall can be. 3 sandbags are all you need to start building your first sandbag wall, so a group of 3 individuals working together can get a decent defensive structure built in no time at all. Yet another example of how a small group of players can have a positive effect on the war. But what about if you want to play on your own? Can a lone wolf really make a difference and have fun with Foxhole? With confidence I can say yes, but under one condition, that you're happy to ask, how can I help? If you walk into any reasonably busy battlefield, I can almost guarantee someone will be very glad for your help and will show you what to do. So whether you're happy to help or prefer to be a lone wolf, here are some examples of how you can enjoy Foxhole. Taking part in larger operations will be much easier, as you'll often stumble across a big group with someone telling them what to do, and it's easy to just join in with them. You may end up being part of a final push on an enemy base with your trusty rifle. You may find yourself with 2 mammon grenades in the middle of the night, rushing the enemy defenses in an attempt to weaken them. As an individual player, often you just need to turn up and be willing to help, to be a part of something special. Artillery bombardment is one of the most effective ways to destroy an enemy base and move your front line forward, and generally speaking, this is very much the domain of Foxhole clans. But as an individual, I have lost count of the number of times I've turned up to a base. I've seen there are 3 or 4 artillery guns. Although they're firing, the team operating them are desperate for more people to make the process more efficient. If you just say, "I'll help, but I've not done it before," they'll tell you what to do, as it's often as simple as picking up a shell with one button and loading it into the gun with another. You might end up aiming, you might end up spotting, but even just shifting the shells is incredibly important in an artillery barrage and surprisingly satisfying. Another situation you will often find is a tank that has an incomplete crew, and they're asking for someone to join them. Usually they already have a commander and a driver, so they'll ask you to be the gunner. Just point and click to shoot and smash R to reload. It really is that simple and great fun for new and experienced players alike. If you spend more of your time behind the front lines, it's perfectly possible you will be asked to help with harvesting or logistics. As we've already discussed, you can perform some of these tasks as a small group, but if you're asking to help out, you may get roped into logistics on a far larger scale with a more experienced player or team of players. Frankly, this is one of the best ways to learn, as the more advanced logistics does start to become more complicated. But that's nothing some hands-on experience with more experienced players can't sort out. I won't go into full detail, honestly, because I only understand some of it myself, but there are different vehicles, machines, and factories you can use to produce more equipment and produce it more efficiently compared to the more basic logistics you can do on your own. Or in other words, there are different ways of doing logistics, and asking more experienced players if you can help is a way of unlocking those more complex levels of logistics. Building is another great example of how you can help your team by simply asking, "How can I help?" Building basic defenses is something you can do on your own or as a small group, but building something larger will take a long time on your own. Most battlefields will have a highly ranked player exerting some form of control over the building in that particular section. Grab a spade or a hammer and do what the others are doing, or ask if there is anything more specific that needs doing. Sometimes they will say, "We're fine here, but we need you on the front line keeping them off our backs while we finish these defenses." But sometimes an extra pair of hands is exactly what they need to speed up the construction process. If you're trying to decide whether Foxhole is right for you, let me put it this way. I spend 50% of my time doing all of the different activities I've mentioned, and the other 50% simply being a frontline soldier running and gunning. Sometimes on my own, sometimes with a few friends, and often working with random people around me. I've never felt the need to join a clan to enjoy Foxhole. I can't commit the time. I don't really have an excuse. I just don't want to be a part of a clan. So no, you don't need to be a part of a clan to enjoy Foxhole. However, if you're struggling to decide whether the game is right for you, take another look at the activities I've mentioned in this video. If they sound appealing to you, then there's a real chance you'll like this game. It's definitely better with a couple of friends, but even as a solo player, although you may have slightly reduced options, there is plenty you can do. Now, I know plenty of you watching this will be experienced Foxhole players, so please do let me know your thoughts in the comments below. There are plenty of potential new players being put off by this idea that you must be in a clan to enjoy the game. I personally think that is simply not true, but please let me know your thoughts. If you're trying to decide whether Foxhole is for you, just let me know if you have any questions in the comments and I'll get back to you. Oh, and subscribe, I guess. I mean, if you want to. See ya.